let me just start off by saying it's great to be a human, okay? I'm just throwing it out there. Could you imagine being like a lion and being really hungry and wanting just like a random snack? You would have to actually go out there and chase down a snack. Like, you can't just open your refrigerator and heat up some Totino pizza rolls. It just doesn't work like that. Humans can literally just carry their fat asses into a vehicle, go to the drive-thru and start munching on like soggy old French fries. Like, it's not really that difficult. Could you imagine having to hunt something down every time you're hungry? I'm good, okay? I'll stick to my Pop-Tarts and my Totino pizza rolls. Anyways, all jokes aside, let's get straight into today's video because it's a pretty serious video. There are some like legitimately great collectibles that have recently been announced, and I wanted to kind of dissect them, tell you guys my personal thoughts on all of them, because that's essentially what we do on this channel. Sometimes people feel like I'm digging too deep when it comes down to like content creating for this channel, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we're always going to have news and rants about action figures, okay? Every little corner that you can think of, that's just what we do. We talk about action figures. Sometimes we beat certain conversations to death, but that's only because we're so passionate about action figures. So let's get straight into it. And I did want to start off with this absolute banger of an action figure. We're looking at the Miles Morales PlayStation 2 action figure from Threezero. You heard that correctly. Threezero. Yet again, I have been covering them way more consistently, and not so much because I'm like my interest level has peaked, even though yes, I am legitimately interested in the line. It also has to do with the fact that they've just been releasing way more over the past few weeks. They announced 2 different characters for the Mega Man X universe, as well as a new Iron Man based on the Homecoming live action MCU film. So it's just really nice to continue seeing them just bombarding us with brand new releases. Here we're talking about Miles Morales from the PlayStation universe, and it's kind of interesting because in the past we really didn't get a lot of action figures based in the video game universe. That's not something that we saw consistently, but over the past, I would say like 5 to 6 years, we've seen video games really evolve into something bigger, in some cases bigger than even live action comic book films or superhero films. Hasbro has been doing anything from Marvel versus Capcom. They've also worked on the Sony video game universe, as well as even the latest Avengers video game that was available through multiple different platforms. So it's just nice to see video games getting a ton of love in action figure form, even if they for the most part don't really sell extremely well. But here we're talking about Miles Morales. He will come with some really cool webbing accessories. He will come with 2 web shooting accessories, a rolled up web accessory, and then a few of those lightning effect pieces that can be ported onto the hand. It will also come with alternate eyes that can be swapped out, and then 10 hands total. It's also worth mentioning this figure is like made of some sort of die cast. At least that's what it says in the description. I'm not sure if it's a mixture of die cast and hard plastic, or if the entire figure is made of die cast. The figure does have a ton of intricate and finely detailed sculpt work all over. I just absolutely love the way the figure displays. It's going to come with 39 points of articulation, which is actually pretty high even for a Spider-Man action figure. I love that mid-torso articulation. There's no hinge, so it doesn't break up the body mold too much. I don't love the butterflies. It feels like they're kind of holding back a little bit. They could have cut a little bit more into that chest piece, but I'm assuming they're doing it just for the sake of the consistency of the figure overall. They don't want it to break up too much or for it to look extremely gappy. It's something that you actually see pretty consistently from Threezero, especially with their Iron Man figures. It's very difficult to see, at least from afar, like the actual joints that are going on. Only if you have the figure up close and in person, or if you're looking at a review, you can kind of see the hinges, you can kind of see the way that the limbs and the arms connect together. But from afar, as I mentioned, they're pretty smooth with the articulation points. I've noticed this the most on, like, for example, their Mega Man X figures. The figure does also appear to come with toe hinges, which is really going to help with articulation overall. And taking a closer look at some of the up and close images, this figure looks brilliant. I love the way that it actually looks like it's wearing a suit. It feels like it comes to life. There's a lot of like little bumps and a lot of sculpted detail that just brings the figure up to a completely different level. It's not something that we usually see. Even some of the imported figures like SH and Mesco and Mafex, they usually tend to miss some of those finer little details. Now, it is worth mentioning that mid-torso articulation isn't like perfect, at least from the promotional images. He wasn't able to like hunch over too crazy. I'm going to assume that it's a little bit limited just because it's like probably just like a rotating ball joint at the mid-torso, and because there's no hinge, he's just not able to get into some of those crazy dynamic poses that we've even gotten, for example, from the Marvel Legends line. So it's just something to point out. But as I mentioned, where you're really going to get your money's worth with this particular figure has to be the sculpt work and all of the extra accessories. Not to mention the paint apps look to be pretty clean and precise. Hopefully that's the case when you actually open this figure and display him. On a side note, it's actually kind of fun to speculate on what Threezero could do in the foreseeable future for this video game franchise. We know that Hasbro just recently released their gigantic Gamerverse Venom. Could Threezero do something similar to that? Maybe a Doc Ock, a Rhino, a black-suited symbiotic Spider-Man, a Green Goblin, a Kraven maybe? Let's also not forget that Hasbro just recently worked on the Gamerverse Black Cat, which was an absolutely killer action figure, amazing paint apps, probably some of the best articulation on a female body mold that we have ever seen. The figure even had like flippin' articulated hair. I mean, could we see something like that from Threezero? They're clearly interested in the license, in the entire franchise, and I think moving forward, if all of these figures sell incredibly well and if their margins are really good, I think they will continue to go down this rabbit hole. As I mentioned before, video game action figures or video game Marvel Legends action figures don't usually sell very well. All of the alternate versions for Miles Morales, for example, are still sitting on peg holes. Same thing with all of the alternate color schemes or all the alternate suits for Peter Parker. Those are also not really going up in price or very difficult to find. They're usually like sitting on store shelves collecting dust. But perhaps Threezero could be the outlier. They could be the ones to kind of set the standard, set the tone going forward, and maybe their collectibles or their action figures are so good that the source material really doesn't matter. Maybe people will just pick these figures up because they're like breathtaking good looking figures. I believe their original Peter Parker Gamerverse Spider-Man or the 2.0 that they released not too long ago completely sold out. So if that trend continues, we will definitely see more Gamerverse action figures out there. Oh, and FYI, just to continue making people really upset and angry, I did want to give you guys one last update on the whole Kith Marvel Legends and Jada Toys crossover event. For those of you guys that are not too familiar, I'm not going to bore you with the details. Essentially, all three manufacturers decided to cross over and make some action figures. They were extremely limited. Well, I should say a lot of collectors definitely wanted the color scheme because they're actually accurate to the Marvel vs. Capcom universe. And then I'm going to assume that a bunch of Kith collectors wanted it just because it has the logo stamped on it. I'm assuming that's like a pretty big up and coming clothing brand. I'm personally not too familiar with them, but apparently a lot of people in the comments section and within the action figure community are very familiar with them. So if you guys are interested, these figures are selling for a really nice penny. Like originally when I made the first video, and that's why I'm giving you guys a quick little update, apparently the prices just continue to go higher, or they continue to increase the deeper we go into the year. And I'm assuming once we get to the holidays, they may even spike yet again. So when I first originally covered this particular topic, the figures were going for just a little over $100. Now apparently they're going for closer to $200 because most of the prices on there are either not calculating shipping or taxes. I will say like 90% of all listings on here actually do calculate shipping for you, but there are some outliers here and there. I suppose taxes is all you would really have to worry about, but you know, if you sit down and actually do the math, if you're buying one of these collectibles for about like $160 to $170 with taxes and everything, you're paying closer to $200. And mind you, these figures are already expensive at retail for $45. Now they're being marked up even more. Like I said, not really anything groundbreaking. There's nothing new. I just wanted to let you guys know the prices for these figures just continue to increase increase. It's also worth mentioning some of the cases that people sold. I don't know how they had cases of these, but they had like the entire wave, all 4 figures. Those were selling for close to in some cases over $600. So I suppose the crossover was a complete success for all of the companies involved, just not so much for Kith fans and hardcore legitimate action figure fans as well. But it is what it is. I just really quickly wanted to make people angry because they don't like when I cover stuff like this. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys do, make sure to stay tuned. We're uploading on a daily basis. We love it. It's sometimes really difficult, but we absolutely enjoy it. So hopefully you guys enjoy it just as much. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the hobby. Post your action figures. Play around with them. And definitely stick around because we do have some pretty big projects on the way. You have to wait a little bit more. Be a little bit patient, but there are some pretty big things coming for the channel. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.